Hi. So we're waiting to, I see the clock is ticking. That's kind of scary. Oh, okay.
Don't do that.
So I could tell you a story. Sure. Well, first of all, it's exciting to be here. I think that this event last year was probably one of the most exciting events I've been to, and I go to a lot of conferences. So it's amazing because you meet so many people in the audience that just have wonderful ideas, and the people on the podium are sharing those ideas openly, but the people on Twitter and the people connecting in the seats are really, just equally, or in some cases, even more amazing and engaging, and it's really incredible to tap into those networks of people. So it was awesome to hear the panel before and to hear the speakers so far. And I literally am tap dancing. I'm doing the nervous dance back here, but we should be good to go in a second, I would imagine. I got the one moment from yes?
All right.
No?
No.
So yeah, any questions? I haven't even said anything. What am I going to talk about? So I'm going to talk about a brief history of education. I'm going to talk about the present and the past and the future. So we're going to
280 slides.
280 slides. It's yeah, it's a lot of stuff. I talk quickly. This is actually as slow as I go. I'm warming up my vocal cords right now.
And this is really an audition for TED?
An audition for TED? I don't know, but who's this TED you speak of?
I don't know.
How long did it take? I started on this presentation the day after the 140 edu last year.
So since August
So 365 days because it was a leap year. Yes, and August 4th last year was my birthday. It will be my birthday this year as well. But yeah, thank you. So really?
Hey?
Yes.
What's your startup?
What's my startup? All right, so I don't talk about that much, but so I have a startup called eduClipper, which is basically people have been talking about as the Pinterest for education.
Ooh.
But we're doing, well, we're actually looking to do a really cool thing for teachers and students to create digital portfolios.
Nice.
And yeah, it'll be very, very cool.
When do you launch?
We're in alpha now, so you can sign up at educlipper.net. We have like 19,000 people on there. And then we'll be launching officially, hopefully like the beginning of the school year, like early September.
Cool. All right,
So
I'm
yeah,
gonna
maybe we can.
You ready?
So that was a warm-up, and yeah, that's right. Two guys walk into the 90 struck in the street. Why? One said no. Excellent. Did I have the audio going?
I think so.
All right.
Yeah, the audio's up.
We're good. All right, and now.
And go!
Thank you. All right, so hi and welcome. All right, it kind of must have been an introduction. So where were we? That's right. Last year I was talking a little bit about changing the world, and that's where we ended up, about changing the world. This was me. It still is a picture of me, formerly. And I told you that I wanted to change the world, so I went into education. And that's exactly what I did because I wanted to change the world. This presentation is called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Future, and it's presented in 3 acts. We have, of course, the past, the present, and the future. So buckle up, it's going to be a quick ride. We're talking about the intersection of the past, the present, and the future. This is not a one-way conversation, so please get involved on Twitter. Use the hashtag 140edu. I don't think I have to tell you that, but certainly play along at home. There's a famous quote by Dr. Carl Sagan, who says, you have to know the past to understand the present. That's really true. So we're here. Let's take a look backwards at the past. Times have changed, but not really. If you look at education, and everyone's shown a slide similar to this at some point in their career, you look at the fact that classrooms kind of look pretty much similar to the way they did. Because we know what we know. We're comfortable with what the system did, and we're comfortable with what the system did. So basically, from the 1960s to the 70s to the 80s to the 90s, the only thing that's really changed is the incredibly poor fashion sense. But now we're in this rut of education where we talk about fixing things. We're going to fix education. Well, fixing is kind of weird. It's as if we had some more magical list where we can go through and be like, well, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing, and education will be fixed. Well, we can't fix it because it implies it was working at one point to begin with. What time do you want to go back to where it was actually working perfectly for us, right? So, technology evolves, and I think, obviously, so should our educational system. Let's take a quick trip down memory lane, and this is educational technology in the works.
Their dreams were dying in Independence, Missouri.
Folks
That's
right
right.
here are taking the trail to Oregon. I reckon we ought to do the same.
The Oregon Trail?
It'll cure the boredom.
We might learn a thing or two.
You won't learn anything.
You guys remember the Oregon Trail? There's the Oregon Trail movie. So yeah, that was the Oregon Trail.
Where in the world is
San Diego.
There you go. All right, so we got someone dancing in the front. That was awesome. So this is how I learned social studies. This is how I learned math. This was educational technology, right? So print shop, throwback, anyone? Print out a banner. So anyway, we've come a long way, but we have baggage. Baggage. And we carry that baggage with us to the present. So let's talk about the fact that we live in a ridiculously, unbelievably amazing time. We teach in that time as well, but, and it happens to be a very big but, There's a lot of obstacles in our way over here. This probably looks familiar to many people. The concept that school sucks, right? So, and I'm not talking about schoolsucks.com where you could buy term papers. I'm not talking about the website. I'm talking about the fact that kids walk around saying school sucks. And if you have a middle school or high school student, sometimes they elaborate and add stuff in the middle. But we act like kids when we hear this. We act like kids. We get either shocked, oh my God, they're talking about our profession, or we get upset because they're talking about our profession, or we get pissed because they're talking about our profession. And well, why does school suck? Well, ask the kids. This was a really good argument. You could look on YouTube, you could look for essays the kids write about why they hate school, that's great. But I found a really interesting one that this young student did through GIMP, and they put together, it says school wastes our gigabytes. Now this is not necessarily the most cogent, profound argument in the world, but it took them a long time to do. And if you look at the comments underneath, that's where I really found some fascinating piece. It says, I made this one day when I was bored out of my brains with homework, and I decided to make a protest, something they learned probably in social studies, the 21st century way. Someday I'll make a better version. No one has ever said that about your homework, right? So we could also ask Paul Simon why he thinks school sucks.
When I think back on all the crap I learned in high school.
Right? But don't worry, kids today are singing about high school as well. In fact, there's one girl that sings all about how she can't wait for the weekend, right? Oh, sorry.
It's Friday, Friday.
You're going to hate me later for that, I'm sorry.
Everybody's looking forward to the weekend.
But don't worry, teachers. There are some students that love Monday.
It's Monday, Monday. I'm so glad it's Monday. 5 great days until the weekend. Monday, Monday. It's the best day after Sunday. 5 super fantastic days until the weekend. Study and study.
Yeah, okay. But there's some pain points in school. We have to acknowledge that there are actually pain points in school, right? And what do I think about this whole thing? So we know that kids sometimes say that school sucks, yada, yada. What do I think? Well, I think that school, unfortunately, sometimes sucks the love out of learning. And I think that's really unfortunate, especially given the fact that we live in such an amazing time. So if we look at the facts, the fact is that 76.3% of all audiences expect slides with data on them. So this is for you folks. So 7,200 kids drop out of school every single day. That leads to 1.3 million kids a year. And if we translate that to something that's actually like you could wrapple your heads around, for at least from an educator perspective, is that means that there's 4,333 classrooms, 30 kids apiece, that are dropping out of school, or over 100 kids in this presentation. So, by the way, I don't do the pie graph thing. They just remind me too much of Trivial Pursuit pieces, so we'll move on. One of the problems is the way we see school. We see school as preparing kids for what's next, right? So this is the way most schools look, right? It's preparing kids for what's next. It's this concept of college and career ready. So here we go. College, career, ready? Okay. So the McDonaldization of education is really the problem that I see is just becoming more and more of an issue. This Mick education, people say, well, it was the 19th century, you know, at least we taught kids how to make stuff. You know, in the industrial age, we taught them how to make physical things. Now we just cram them full of things we're told to teach them, and we shove them down the factory line. So McDonald's, of course, has the famous slogan, over 99 billion served. Very, very fitting. Not for education, though. We need to focus more on the individual student. We really have to give every single kid an IEP. And not just give them an IEP, allow them to work with the staff and the school to create their own learning path and measure up against what they know, what they don't know, and what they're going to know. An individual education plan, I think really every learner should have one of these. Didn't you want one of those? I personally do. My son, who has an IEP, started school this past year. This is Hunter on his first day. And this was him coming home the first day. So school was not what he thought it was going to be. He had a teacher that said, hi, my name is Mrs. So-and-so, and I have rules. Students will be quiet. They will keep their feet on the floor. And I'm saying to myself, oh boy, this kid's not even 3 years old. We fill schools with this all the time. We fill it with don'ts. Do not do, do not do, do not do. We don't tell them what we want them to do. The first day, we just tell them what they can't do and what they shouldn't do. But that's nothing new. We've been doing this for a long time. This is a punishment book. Love the title. From the year 1932. But note the two things I want you to see. Over here it says year 190. They were so short-sighted that they thought they could only print this and it would work for those few years. The other thing I want you to see is the fact that the nature of the offense, written up like a police report, says writing and passing impromptu notes in class. Sounds like texting to me. The medium has changed, not the problems. Some modern examples of this are as follows. Here's a rule list from France. They hang this on the wall. Don't eat chewing gum in class. Cardinal rule number 1, of course. Don't speak French in English class. Maybe that's okay. Don't touch the chairs. I don't know how you physically sit in a chair without touching it, but that's just my guess. So here's a rule list from Baltimore. And we have, of course, on the right, no chewing gum right next to the most important rule of all time, no weapons. They kind of balance each other out. The rules all point to one thing, and the rule over here is that there is standardized education, standardized testing. We've become a nation of testing zombies. Tests. Yum, yum, yum. So here's a really cool thing. Ms. Jenkins, why isn't Pluto a planet anymore? That's a really good question, Jimmy, but it won't be on the standardized test, so I'm afraid we won't have time to discuss that. Next, welcome to the cult of standardized testing where no child will be left behind. We're not cookie-cutter pieces. Our kids certainly aren't. We know that this world allows us to create things and be individuals, and I think that's amazing. Life is not prepped for the test. Life, in fact, of course, is the test itself. Something is very broken, especially here in New York where we had Pineapple Gate. You all remember this, right? The question that threw everyone for a loop, this pineapple question, right?
What,
So,
you never heard of a talking pineapple before? Come on.
kids lived in a world where they grew up watching SpongeBob SquarePants, who lived in a pineapple under the ocean. How could they not have figured out that question? But anyway, I digress. Obama has a really good quote about testing, and it's a really one that I'd like to share with you. It says, "One thing I never want to see happen is that schools are just teaching for the test, because then you're not learning about the world, you're not learning about different cultures, you're not learning about math, you're not learning about science. All you're learning about how to fill in a little bubble on an exam and the little tricks you need to do in order to take the test, and that's not going to make education interesting." And that's his charge in that statement, is that you have to make education interesting. And here's where technology has come to play its role. We have things like the Khan Academy, right? Technology at its very best. There is a library online. Many of you are already familiar with the Khan Academy. Look at the slogan on top, 120 million lessons delivered. Sounds very reminiscent of something else that I talked about a moment ago.
Do you have a degree in
Let's learn about Khan.
I don't have a degree in education.
Could you teach a class in education and then take it yourself so you could have one?
I'll think about that. No, but potentially I'll think about that.
Well, I like that
Yeah.
about you. I
Yeah.
like it because I'm no fan of experts.
Right.
And you get to go out there and basically just say, hey, trust me, this is the way the world works, right?
Exactly. No, exactly. That's the
I
fun
say
of
that
it.
kind of stuff right down this
right.
tube every night. Where do you get your information? I mean, do you know all these things before you teach it, or do you teach yourself first?
So like the stuff I started off with, like the math and the physics and the economics and stuff, that that was kind of like my background. So those I kind of just did. But now when I do like the French Revolution and stuff, I do look on Wikipedia and read up a little bit. I do.
Wikipedia.
Well, I mean, that's the.
So you do some heavy research.
I do. And I click on the footnotes though. I make sure that it's
I'm responsible for some of those.
Yeah. So am I.
So if I knew I could get my college degrees from Wikipedia, I might have stayed at home in front of my computer. But anyway, so Sal Khan, I do want to say something. Wanting to solve the education problems of the world is a very noble task. And in fact, anyone who dedicates their life to do that is a truly amazing thing, amazing person with an amazing mission. Sal Khan is not the devil, despite what some may think. However, I would like to point out the fact that he certainly is not Superman. And that we're not going to put our stock into something that's become a buzzword that people don't understand and yet are pushing on our kids. When they fail, based on the wonderful curriculum they've watched on things like Khan Academy and other stuff like that, we go and we put them into the other place technology has come to play its role, which is credit recovery. So they failed, now we stick them in front of a computer in a lab that looks like this. And have you ever seen credit recovery? Credit recovery is some of the worst experiences in front of a computer you will ever have. In fact, this kid on the bottom is doing it right here, and he's literally gouging his eyes out. So credit recovery is not the answer. I think it's ass backwards to kind of put your faith into saying, wait till they failed and invest $30,000 a year in a lab where they're going to take this crappy assessment or, and get them back up to speed. Al Gore is saying, I gave you the internet and this is the best you guys can do. So, as I said last year, any teacher that can be replaced by a robot should be, and that's a Clark quote. And in fact, some countries are doing just that. So in South Korea, they're actually investigating using robotic teachers. So anyway, look at the questions. When we ask a kid a question, if we're going to say, where did you get the answer? And the answer could be Google, Wikipedia, Wolfram Alpha, or the back of the textbook. Perhaps it's not about giving them the quest for something we already know. Perhaps it's giving them a quest for finding that quest. It's finding their own path of knowledge and understanding the questions. SWOBOT, students will be able to. I want them to be able to question, think, and act in that order. And I think that's really important. We can't assess what matters with a number 2 pencil. If we think outside the box, we have the following. As I mentioned before, I wanted to be Superman. I'm a big Superman fan. There's a scene in Superman the movie where Clark Kent has lost his father, and he says over here, all those things I could do, all those powers, and I couldn't even save him. Our technology is saying the same stuff. We use smart technology very stupidly. And how do we come to use this amazing technology so we can create a more valid learning experience? Well, it's shifting that question. It's how do we start empowering our kids to facilitate a more valid learning experience? The first key is that we realize it doesn't have to start so much with us. We have to stop being teachers and start being facilitators. And the age-old question is certainly, what did you learn in school today? And the kids always answer nothing. And if they answered it more fully, they would say, nothing that matters to me. The GAC factor, it's what I call the give a crap factor. If you appeal to that, you're going to engage these kids. Does this does this stuff matter about engaging kids?
You've got mail.
So sorry, hold on one second. You've been ousted as the mayor of the 140 conference by Sal Khan. Yeah, so one day. Thank you. All right, don't clap. The time is ticking. So what motivates educators? What motivates educators? It's very simple. I'm not telling you, I'm asking you. So please tweet your answers out there to 140edu. The question is you're going to say things like, I want to help kids, I want to save the world, I want to do things like that. They're all noble causes. If you listen to the media about educators, you're not going to find those things. The media says that we do it for other reasons. And if you look at what motivates our students, we have very interesting ideas. Who's this guy? It's a social media conference. Who's this guy? Joseph Kony, good. But most kids got very engaged by Joseph Kony. In fact, over 91 million people have watched this video, many of them students that were very active. Now, I'm not talking about invisible children. I'm not talking about the guy that went crazy. I'm not talking about the questionable judgments of that tool. But I'm talking about the fact that they sold 500,000 action kits at $30 a piece to students that wanted to be engaged because it said to them, you matter, you make a difference, and we can do this and change the world. And they did get involved. This is not cool. This does not engage kids, especially when in their pockets and in their backpacks they're carrying around the real thing. Technology is not a flashy motivator, and it shouldn't be used as such. It can't be a magic trick either. Kids are smarter than we think. And fear can't be a motivator for teachers or their students. You have nothing to fear. Lessons infused with technology always go perfectly as well as planned, right? Right? Okay. The green guy is wrong. Yoda says try. No, there is no try. Do or do not. There is no try. Yeah, well, you know what? If we don't try, we're not going to fail. And if we don't fail, we're not going to learn. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to learn from that. And it's okay to move on. So here we go. Change is not always easy, and this is really the truth. We know that. We all talk about how we want to change, and we don't do it. Well, because it's not easy, but we have to do it. And the reason is you have to do it. We have to start changing, and not talking about it, but actually doing it. There's always a choice, and our kids are exercising that choice more and more each year. We have the same choice, but I think through our actions, we're going to be able to dispel some of the things we do as inactions. We can complain as loudly as we want. We know there's problems with education, but we have to act louder, and that's really important. Two popular discussions at every conference that deals with social media and education are as follows: Facebook and social media through cell phone access. Let's start with access. A quarter of the kids in schools have access to a device. That's the national study. A quarter of the kids. What if only a quarter of them had desks? It's really a pretty unfair advantage, and it's kind of silly when you think that 90% of middle school students have a cell phone when they go to school. We put these things away, and we don't let them use the devices, and in fact, we should let them teach us how to use the devices better than we currently are using them ourselves. We talk about the 21st century as if it's something that's already here, as if it's something that's coming. It's not already coming, it's here. In fact, if it was a slice of pizza, we would have already eaten the first slice. We have to remember that we're not the smartest person in the room anymore when it comes to social media and education. We're not the smartest person if you could look it up on a cell phone, and that's totally okay. You can't say you're a lifelong learner if you already say you have all the answers. We talk about social media. I'm not going to stand here and debate it. I think that's ridiculous. At this point, people say, well, I don't get it, so therefore it can't be valuable. Well, we're at a conference here with 80 schools represented or more. We have 350 educators that will be in the network, and we have 90,000 people that will be listening online and interacting with tweets throughout the day. So I think that argument kind of just gets debunked. The debate is over. Social media is a valuable tool for education, and we have to take that and embrace it and move on. And the idea of not letting kids use their networks in school, about keeping out the real networks, I think that's kind of silly too. In the real world, cheating is called collaboration. When I go next door and ask someone for help, that's called collaboration. I don't get in trouble for that. They say, oh, thank you for not wasting time doing the same thing over and over again. An open book test. Well, I propose that we have the open world test. In fact, better yet, we have the open network test. Everyone you're connected to is a valuable person to you and is going to allow you to engage, and really the people you're connected to is going to create a better connection. And you talk about the future, let's shoot for where the puck is, not where puck is going, rather, not where it is. That's the Wayne Gretzky quote. Welcome to the future. You're already here. Let's talk about it. The fact is, the time is now. We can't predict the future. We have to try to build it together. During this presentation, you got all these different things on social media. It's really great. Here's the solution. There is no solution. If you go to Twitter and you type in how to solve education, you're not going to find one. Let's talk about it real quick in 2 minutes. I'm going to go through a couple of things I think would help us talk about education in a little bit better way. Safety and power in numbers. Do never, ever, ever utter the words again, I am just a teacher. You matter, you make a difference, and you're a teacher, and honestly, if you don't believe that, then you're not going to be able to do it. Stop waiting for Superman or putting your faith in any company or product or anything else. It's not going to happen unless it comes from you and your peers and your hard work. Twitter is a great place to connect. There's 80 to 100,000 people that are actively involved in education on Twitter. That's from Tom Whitby, an educated guess. So let's start doing something. We have to remember it's not about us, it's about our kids. I talked last year about the fact that I have super kids. Well, the clock has not stopped for them. They're getting older, and I think the reality is we have to really make a difference now. Empower our students to make a difference by letting them have the reins. It's great to get up in front of the class and lecture, that's fine, but let the kids get up and actually teach and work with you. Allow the kids to amaze you by project-based or passion-based learning and light their brains on fire by appealing to that GAC factor and that sense of wonder. It's really an amazing thing what you can do once you have a kid engaged. How do you do this? Well, Angry Birds is a great way, right? I mean, NASA developed, right? The latest one. So we can look at putting Angry Birds on your tests like this or like that. But this teacher actually had kids build Angry Birds outside and launch it to learn physics. And I think that that's pretty darn amazing.
So now they're sending...
So you can watch this video later. I tweeted all the links. Talk less and do more. School shouldn't suck the life out of education. It should actually invigorate you as a student to want to learn more. Collaboration is the 21st century key, and the key ingredient to that is trust. Trust in the kids and letting them trust you. Allow learning to matter by getting the kids to do something that's real. Eating versus cooking, that's the difference. We're going to allow kids to consume versus create. Make them create and don't let them consume. Anyone can download an app, but not everyone can upload one. The next speaker you're going to hear from actually had an app developed with his students about cyberbullying, which is pretty amazing. Let them produce. We have the tools. We have the ability to do this. It's silly not to. This is Kodu from Microsoft, an amazing product that they make games for the Xbox. Date the tool and marry the ability. So here's kids working on iPads. You know, I said we're a nation of testing zombies. We're also a nation of iPad zombies, and that's an unfortunate thing. I love iPads, but let me tell you something. This was the iPod in 2002. This is the iPod in this year. Reality is, can you imagine what the iPod's going to look like in 10 years? I don't want to take that bet. Stop being narrow-minded and thinking about every tool as a hammer, rather, and every problem as a nail. We have to stop thinking about the fact that these things will be obsolete very soon. And the same is true for web tools. When they disappear, we get another tool, we'll move on. That's okay. And remember, when you use the cloud, make sure it allows you to reign. Make sure you can take control of your tools. It's really important to get your information back. We're at a crossroads. The big question is, your students can change the world. This is the idea. And the way that they do that is through you. You can change the world, and it's through your students, because you're going to touch so many students throughout the time that you're a teacher and engage them and invigorate them. That's really important. Let's stop thinking that they can't and help them prove that they can. And the key is to start small, but just to start, here's the link for everything you need to know to fix education. Okay, have a sense of humor. That's really important. I'm on my last slide. I'm going to skip through some of this stuff. Not as fast as I thought I was, I guess. Lifelong learner, here's my diploma. That's what that really means. Do not stop learning. And downstairs it says, as you teach, you learn. Twitter's a never-ending opportunity. That's great. But for those of us on Twitter, practice what you preach and practice what you tweet. Remember, actions speak louder than the buzzwords you hear. Hopefully you'll recharge your batteries over the next few days by listening to some amazing people. But let's think about, for the next few weeks, it's back to the classroom time. And in Back to the Classroom, we have tabula rasa, or for my fellow nerds in the group, tabula rasa. It can be better than it was last year. There's new kids, new chances, new possibilities. What's the constant? The constant, anyone? It's you. You can be better than you were last year. You can be better, and that's really where it's going to come from. You're the variable that you can control. It's about you. Your passion, your dedication can be infectious, so that's what I'm giving you as a homework assignment for the rest of the summer. It's truly important that you be infectious. Thank you guys very much.